Welcome to the channel, everybody. Today I'm in Farnley Cemetery in Leeds. It's midway between Leeds and Bradford, and although it might look like a rural cemetery, appearances can be quite deceptive. This was an industrial area back in the 1800s when the cemetery was founded. There are mines and mills all over the vicinity. Today we're going to have an interesting journey around the graveyard, looking at some of the unique graves and telling some of the stories. Come and join me. George Tordoff was a bank clerk from Armley in Leeds, according to the 1911 census at least. Around the time of his death, he lived at Alliance Street in Armley with his family. Jonas was a bootmaker from Farnley, and his mother Emma was also from Farnley. This is the only grave I've seen of its sort. As you can see, he's buried at sea. Now, I've done a little digging and I've found the approximate location of his burial. It's approximately 290 kilometres or 180 miles out of the port of Tenerife, roughly level, but about 285 miles or 458 kilometres out from Agadir in Morocco. It seems a strange location for a bank clerk from Leeds, and my first thought was that he was enlisted in the Navy after the census. That wasn't the case. I found his registration of death, which lists that he died on a ship, the Adarina. She was basically a brand new ship constructed by the Caledon Shipbuilding and Engineering Limited in Dundee. Having been launched on the 2nd of March 1911 and completed in May 1911, it was practically brand new. She was owned and operated by the Yeowood brothers in Liverpool. Digging a little deeper, I found that the Yeowood brothers operated a small fleet that left every Wednesday from Liverpool to the Canaries via Lisbon. They took British manufactured goods and tourists to the islands and returned with bananas, tomatoes, and obviously the returning tourists. It's one of these journeys that George was definitely on, given the dates. I'm still not sure why George was in the Canaries, but his cause of death might give us a clue. It's listed as an old word for pulmonary tuberculosis. My speculation is that he was escaping the cold and damp and smokiness of Leeds in December to help his TB. But he may also have been there on business. I don't know for sure. He was clearly missed, and I don't know how much money a bootmaker earned, but this was clearly a lot of money for them. Interestingly, you can still see the Adarina if you ever find yourself in southern Chile. By a roundabout route, she found her way into the hands of the Chilean State Railway in 1941. She was then sold to private owners in 1954. In bad weather in September 1963, she was stranded, then under the name of Vina del Mar, and that's where she remains. You can see her on Google Earth. George's parents lived on after his death, both dying in Headingley on Ash Road, which is just off Kirkstall Road. Fred Shaw appears to have been born in 1890 to Thomas and Anne Shaw of Lower Wortley, at least according to the 1911 census. His father was a forge worker. He had a sister and two brothers. One of the brothers, Thomas, also served in the military during World War I. According to both their service records, they lived at Cow Close Farm. Fred's service records suggest that he served in France, but he wasn't issued with a medal, which seems a little odd, so I might have misread that. Either way, he died of sarcoma in Leeds. He actually died on the Headingley campus site of Leeds Beckett University, which was a large military hospital during the First World War. His brother survived the war, reaching the rank of sergeant. Their father Thomas and their mother Annie were both buried in this cemetery. Oliver Langdon and his brother Eric were pioneers of British Speedway. They raced for the Bellevue team in Manchester, and they were both capped for England, meaning that they represented their country at an international event. For those not familiar with Speedway, it's a motorcycle sport. Basically, people ride around an oval track made of dirt, gravel or shale. Bikes power slide around the circuit, and I was always told that they didn't have brakes. I don't know if that's true. The brothers rode in the Isle of Man TT races. Oliver won the Scott Trail on the Trails bike in 1927. His brother won the following year. The Scott Trail is a 70-mile or 110 kilometre off-road course and is considered one of the most difficult in the British Isles. The two brothers also loved tinkering with cars. In the 1950s they found a Rolls Royce that had supposedly been used in a local field during World War II to prevent airborne landings. They arranged a sale and restored it. It turned out to be one of the first ever Rolls Royces to be manufactured in 1904. It even had its original number plate, U44. The car was frequently used on London to Brighton rallies. There's a picture of Oliver and his wife at Windsor Castle in 1977 as part of the Queen's Silver Jubilee celebrations. In 2007 the car was sold for just over £3.5 million. Sadly, a lot of the graves in this graveyard are in disrepair, and this is an example. However, I've just stumbled across it and it does say Farnley on it. Now you might be wondering what that is. Now this is part of the Farnley iron and fire clay works that was just down the road, one of the major employers in the area. They owned a lot of the pits that dotted this landscape. Now they both dug for coal, iron and fire clay, and it was the fire clay that made some of the bricks. They made glazed bricks. They also made sanitary ware, which was allegedly some of the best in the world at the time. They closed around about 100 years ago now. However, their bricks were famous at the time and they're found internationally, including the United States. This is Wilfred Lister of the East Yorkshire Regiment, who died on the 17th of December 1918, aged 32. I couldn't find Wilfred's service record. Maybe it was one of the ones that was destroyed or damaged in 1940 during a bombing raid in World War II. I don't know, but all I know is I couldn't find it. Sadly, the death of Wilfred wasn't the only tragedy to befall the family. On the 21st of February 1907, his father, William James Lister, was working in White's day hole. A day hole is a local mining term for a drift mine, one that's entered on an inclined plane rather than through a shaft. He was assisting a surveyor measuring the working face when he trod on a piece of shale which injured his leg. On the 7th of February, William James Lister, Wilfred's father, died of sepsis or blood poisoning from that injury. He's buried with his wife Ruth in a grave close by. I wanted to show you the grave of John Edward Duckett, who on the 1911 census is living in Cow Close Road, Lower Wortley. Unfortunately, I can't find the grave. It's behind you somewhere, but it's just unrecognisable. It's either overgrown or fallen down or something. I just can't find it. I will try again at a later stage and put it into this video if I can find it. So I'm still looking for John Duckett's grave. I'm looking in section N and I stumbled across this, which proves that I am in the right place. However, I just can't find his grave. Some of the graves are overgrown, some of them are laid down and laid face down so you can't read them. So I've tried hard, I just can't find it, I'm afraid. Somewhere in this section is Henry Summerscales. Henry Summerscales was a landlord in the Beulah pub or coaching inn or hotel, depending on which period you look at, which is just up the road that way. Also in this area here is Alfred Waite Smith, again another landlord of the pub. So this is the grave of John Edward Duckett. On the 1911 census, he's living in Cow Close, Lower Wortley, with his mother, father and their granddaughter. He was a teacher, having trained at Cheltenham Training College, which is now part of the University of Gloucester. They've a photograph of him on their Roll of Honour. On the 2nd of November 1915, he married Eva Crossley in Bramley. He joined the army on the 20th of November 1915. He received a gunshot wound in the left pelvis on the 20th of September 1916. This is the time that the 21st Yeoman Rifles, which John Duckett was part of, were fighting in the Battle of the Somme. I'm not entirely sure whether John was part of that battle or not. I think it's probably likely, but I can't tell from his service record. He was transferred back to England on the 24th of September and was admitted to Fort Pitt Hospital on the 26th of November. The details of his wounds are largely illegible. On the copy I've seen, it suggests that he was wounded in the left hip, right on the joint. Sadly, he died of his wounds in Fort Pitt Military Hospital in Chatham and is now buried here. He is with his wife, and just below this grave are the graves of his parents. John received the British War Medal and the Victory Medal, and these were posthumously sent to his wife Eva. So I've just found this tucked away. This is basically a memorial to Private Charles Wilkinson on the grave of John Wilkinson and Mary Wilkinson. It says he's from the 10th Lincolnshire Regiment, grandson of the above, and only son of Walter and Clara Wilkinson, who died of wounds received in action on the 18th of April 1918 in his 20th year, and was interned at Armley Cemetery in France. So his grave is out there somewhere. And it says, "They must be free or die who speak the tongue that Shakespeare spake." I'm not sure if you can see this, but again, literally just around the corner from the Wilkinson grave is this to John Cecil Doherty, who was the son of John William Doherty of Farnley. He was killed in France on the 1st of July 1916. You might not associate Leeds with violin making, however Joseph Wade didn't let that stop him. He was one of a handful of people making and repairing stringed instruments like violins. He made what's supposed to be an unusual choice in deciding to make violins in the unfashionable Stainer style. The style had been replaced by Stradivari type models in and around the time that Joseph was making violins in the 1880s. Apparently they sounded great, and they can still be found on auction sites to this day. Joseph wasn't the only artisan buried in this graveyard. Rufus Hanson, a photographer, is also buried here somewhere, although he has not got a grave marker and I can't find many details about him. He did, however, take pictures of this area. Hi, this is me in post-production. On my way out of the cemetery, I bumped into the guy who lives in the lodge here at the cemetery. He's lived here approximately 40 years, which is the same amount of time that the cemetery has been closed. He has no intention of moving out, he says, because it's such a nice cemetery and the only way out he'll be going is feet first. And I understand why he has that feeling. It's a lovely little cemetery, and although I had a very nice chat with the guy, because of that chat I forgot to record an outro, so sorry about that. Thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. I do post intermittently, but I hope you'll find them worthwhile when they do come up. Thanks again.